Good afternoon, evening, morning, whatever it might be in your time zone, wherever you are. Today, I'm doing another deck spotlight, and this is on the Eagle Wardens from Doomtown Reloaded. I figured since yesterday I did one off of Classic Doomtown, I might want to do another one today to see if what I did with this deck is I wanted to see if what I did with that last deck I could do with Doomtown Reloaded, and you'll be surprised at how close I could get on deck building on this. I was a little shocked. I'm shocked at how well balanced the game is actually comparatively to its predecessor, which it suffered from extreme amount of power creep at the end. Mostly to do with one or two cards, which we focused on in the last video. Today we're going to take a look at a deck I constructed here to do a similar but slightly different objective. And this one, unlike the last one, this one can shoot. This one's supposed to shoot. It is a degenerative deck that hopefully will degenerate you down to a dead man's hand within about 3 turns or so. So without further ado, let's start with going over the cards. I started with the Eagle Wardens home, their original one. Now this deck will utilize all cards going all the way up to Welcome to Deadwood. So it's from base set to Welcome to Deadwood. That's the majority of the cards in here. I do not know if this is still legal since they came out with the Wild West edition. I believe they're doing a reset with that. So the Wild West edition for tournament legal play gives you a prime opportunity of showing this off because you won't really be able to play it in a tournament, I don't believe. It's got a couple cards that are key to it that are not available in the new setup. So, starting off, we've got the Eagle Wardens. And what this one allows you to do, and I picked this one specifically for its card drawing ability. So, it'll let you boot your dude in the town square to draw 2 cards. If that dude has at least 2 influence, draw 1 other additional card. Discard or ace a card in your hand. Now, the discarding an aces is important because you want to make sure that this deck is slim, just like the last deck. You want to make it real small so that you're drawing from a smaller card pool in order to pull the dead man's hand. So Eagle Warden's home makes that really, really nice. Gives you a nice opportunity there to keep your cards moving, especially within the first couple of turns, because you want to get this moving quick. This one also very fragile, doesn't have a lot of characters in it. You see these 3 characters here, Marcia Ridge, Danny Wilde, and Zachary Deloria? If one of them dies, you're going to have a harder time. So shooting out in the first 2 turns is probably not the best. You want to maybe, this is kind of like a hybrid turtle/shooter. So you want to turtle when you can, shoot when you can. That's the main objective with this one. But Danny Wilde here cannot be called out by dudes with lower influence. And the objective of this deck is to make sure Danny here has as much influence as humanly possible as the deck will allow. Which will allow Zachary here, if you are a Eagle Wardens player, Zachary has a bullet bonus equal to the highest influence among your dudes at his location, including himself. So these 2 work together. Those are your main focus. Danny Wilde, you really don't want to lose him, but if you do, start stacking on Marcia Ridge instead. It doesn't really matter. It's just going to make it harder for them to call him out. But you can really stack the influence on any of the characters in this deck to keep the ball rolling if you have any setbacks. But if Zachary goes down, make sure he doesn't die. Try to get him back into the deck if possible, so that you can pull him up again. So he'll be your main shooter. But there are a couple ways to get around that for the most part, but it's really going to hinder the strategy of this deck. As you see, we're starting with a nice little spread here. We've got the Gomorra Lot Commission. You can play that in place of 1 dude, and you'll see I've got 4 dudes here. 5th dude here is Old Howard. And Old Howard is going to pull out the general store for you. You're not going to worry about your daily income, nor your control points, because those will be negated, but you can still use the ability with Old Howard, and that will let you attach a goods or spell, reducing the cost of that card by 2 Ghost Rock, which is kind of important with this, considering it is very heavy for the goods. Most of the goods here will be adding influence to Danny Wilde. So let's start off with the few characters that we have inside the deck. We have Steven Wiles, which is a no-brainer. He should go in every deck. At least a couple copies. You pull him out for one, and then you discard him at the end of the turn, and you don't have to worry about his upkeep. And he's a heck of a good shooter, and he gives you a nice little influence boost. Now, I put in Speaks with Buffalo for one of the 8s here, because it gives you kind of a backdoor in the later game. If you lose one of these guys, you can kind of use him to start some fights, which will let you start fights where you use influence instead of bullets to resolve them. And then he's got a nice little draw 2 card and then discard 2 card ability if the job goes through. And it's an inherent job, so as long as he's around, you're going to keep doing that. Speak with Buffalo, good addition to the deck. I thought I might trade him out for just another copy of Steven Wiles if that's a possibility, because he rarely comes into play on this one. But it's a nice little backdoor. And then I've got 3 copies of A Allie Hensman. A Allie Hensman, she's going to be your main control point earner. So you basically just send her into town square once you've controlled the town square with these 2 guys. And then every turn, just give her another control point. And keep doing that over and over again. And just sit in the town square and wait for him to come to you. Now, let's go over actions, because this has a couple actions in here that are particularly important for this deck. And we're going to start off with the least important ones first. We've got 3 copies of reserves, just to keep the gold coming in, and also providing us with the needed 8 in clubs for a dead man's hand. So reserves is important. You can really substitute that for any 8 club. I like that one. It costs nothing. It's easy to play, and it cycles the deck faster. Everything about this deck is going fast. Doing it as fast as possible, getting your combo ready to go as quickly as possible. So that one comes in handy. Then we've got Lady Luck for our ace, another one, very good cycler. Lets you discard as many cards as you like during sundown, which can come in handy if you get stuck with a couple of these characters that you need to be running through the deck and not in your hand. You'll lose a fight that way. So Lady Luck, very important. Again, any ace will really do the trick, but that one I like. 0 cost, cycles quickly. This one's interesting. I put this one in later. It's called Signing Over the Stores. It's a noon job. It costs 1. And you mark the town square, which hopefully you'll be controlling already. If successful, discard up to 5 cards from the top of your deck, then attach up to 3 different good cards from your discard pile to your dudes, reducing their cost by 2 each. If this job was unopposed, unboot your leader. Can be useful. You'll get to a point, hopefully in this, where nobody's going to want to fight you because Danny's going to be so much influence and Zachary's going to be so many bullets that they're just going to sit back, and once this starts coming into play, it's just going to keep things going much, much faster. Now, these 3 are staples, and we're going to go over each one here. The first action here is a staple is Play for Blood. This one's got 2 abilities, which are very useful in this deck. First ability is a resolution. If draw hand ranks are tied, increase your draw hand by rank by 1. So that'll help you win fights in the early game. It'll help you win fights in the later game. If you come across another fast-moving Dead Man's Hand deck, that'll help you get 1 rank above them. Second ability is one you're going to use more often, though. That is draw a card and discard a card as a noon action. That one's going to be very useful for it, and I have 4 copies of that. It is off-suit, but most of these cards that are useful are kind of off-suit, so keep that in mind. The second one, another no-brainer for this deck, noon, draw a card. And a cheating resolution, which will help you keep money coming in, gain 3 Ghost Rocks. So remember, if you have this, you might want to hold on to it for at least a little bit to see if they pull a cheat in hand first. Most likely you're going to use it for lowball hands at the beginning. And then just use the noon draw card, because that keeps the ball rolling with this one. And this one's all about rolling fast. Third primary card here is Buried Treasure. This one helps you keep your deck small by acing a card in your discard pile to gain 3 Ghost Rock and draw a card. So another one that's useful for keeping the money rolling in. I do suggest that you take out one of the Play for Bloods and then one good turns, and then do that until you have 2 of those left in your deck. And then start acing these ones as you play it. So it goes into your discard pile, ace that one instead. It's a good quick run. You can keep that cycle going for a little bit, but those ones will be like the 3rd priority for acing. You don't really want to ace anything else too much in this deck. All right, so we've got those. Let's go on to deeds. There's not a lot of deeds in this deck. I've got 1 Circle M Ranch, which is another one that allows you to draw a card if you have 3 or fewer cards in your play hand. Another very useful deed for this deck. It is kind of expendable. You can swap that out for something else if you need to. But then I have, for my Jack of Diamonds, I've got the California Tax Office. Now this comes into play booted, but after the turn it comes into play, you can boot this to choose another player's dude. The dude's owner either pays that dude's upkeep or discards that dude. Reduce the dude's upkeep to 0 until after the next upkeep phase. Slows them down again. So you're going fast, you want to slow them down. This is to slow them down just a little bit. And I have 3 copies of that in here, which goes along nicely with the Gomorra Lot Commission. We discard a card or discard a deed from your hand to gain 1 Ghost Rock. You may move one of your dudes to a deed with a name that matches the discarded deed. So once you get one of those in play, you can cycle them out quick, get them back into the deck, just in case you hit a shootout. All right. Next, we're going to do goods. And goods is where it gets tricky. First good we're going to focus on right now is called the Bloody Star. And this is, thankfully, they adjusted the rules. They errated the rules for how attire, weapons, and I believe some other goods come into play. And it actually helps this deck out a lot, because I think now the rules are, if you've got one attire already on a guy, and you place another attire on it, it comes into play, but you have to choose one to be discarded, just so he has 1 attire. Same goes for weapons, and that also helps this deck out. We'll see in a moment. But the Bloody Star, that one's gonna give you 2 bounty, which is gonna help out with Danny Wilde. You want to give him all to Danny, all the bounties. Give him as many bounties as you can, and there's a few ways to do that. But this one's cool because if you have the other key goods, the other key attire on him, which is Outlaw's Mask, while in town square, the dude gets a bonus to their influence equal to their bounty. And you're going to want to keep that on him, and then play this one, give him the 2 bounty, discard this one, and then there's multiple ways to cycle it back, and usually for free. So every time he does that, he gains another 2 bounty. And bounty is the name of the game in this for Danny, and there's a few ways to do that. But it's not the only way to give him influence. There is another way of giving him influence, and this only lasts during high noon. But Idol of Tea, I'm not going to try to say that. Good luck with that. This one, during high noon, the dude has 2 plus 2 influence. This one's going to let you move places and still be able to fight. Then the bottom action here actually comes in handy when dealing with Old Howard here, is when you feel strong enough to go out, go to one of their deeds and move Old Howard over there by choose a card that you own and that is attached to a location. Attach it legally to a deed you control. So you can basically just make one of their deeds useless and sitting there. And because of Marcia Ridge's ability, you'll still be able to use the ability on it if it has a cool ability. While Marcia is in the town square and you have more influence there than each other player, you may use controller abilities on adjacent deeds as if you controlled them. And adjacent to town square is pretty much anything but a strike. Anything out of town, it's going to be out of your limits, but anything in town is going to be able to be used by Marcia Ridge and the rest of your guys. So don't worry about them controlling any of your stuff. If they come over here to the general store, let them sit there, keep holding town square, and hold it for as long as you can. All right, so those are some of the goods there. We've got a couple more here that actually help the deck out a little bit. This is Tusk, and I've got 4 copies of this in here because, like I said, the weapons rules and the attire rules have changed. So if you play one on him, right, it comes into play, and this one, after this card enters play, draw a card. the dude has a +5 value for opposing card effects. You're not too worried about that one, but the drawing a card part is important because when you play one on him, and then say you get another one, and you play that on him, you draw another card, and then you discard it back into your deck, and it keeps cycling. That's another good one to use for buried treasure. After a while, you just want to start getting rid of them because they're not going to help your draw hands out. But in the early game, 4 copies of these is what I run in this deck. All right. So we do have some on suits, and we're going to go over. One of them is a no-brainer. Pedro, you're going to want one for each. Danny and Zachary, that way you can't get pistol whipped back to your home, but I mean, it might happen still. There's only 2 of these in the deck. Pedro, very useful, costs nothing, and this dude cannot be moved by opposing card effects, is a very useful key. And the other 2 8s are the evidence. And I've got 2 copies of this here, and this one is you pay 1 Ghost Rock to raise the bounty on a dude by 2. Ace this card. Great, because it aces itself, which you want it to, and also gives Danny Wilde another 2 bullets. Or inevitably, it gives Zachary another 2 bullets, Danny Wilde another 2 influence in Town Square. And I've got a couple to round off everything. These are the last 2 items. We've got a Peacemaker and a LeMat Revolver. We'll go over the Peacemaker first. It's pretty self-explanatory. This one is not going to let your main shooter be lowered to a draw. It's going to stay a stud. What I usually do is I'll play it on Zachary for most of the game, and then halfway through the game, I switch to the LeMat Revolver, and we either move that Peacemaker over to Speaks with Buffalo, or we just discard it. Or any of these guys will really do. It just makes him a stud. But this one, LeMat Revolver, has a cheating resolution. Boot, increase your hand rate by the dude's bullet rating on Zachary, who's going to have a lot of bullet rating. And then the other resolution is a resolution boot. Only use this ability if this dude is a stud. If, by including the top card of your discard pile with your draw hand, you have 3 pairs of different values, increase your hand rank by this dude's bullet rating. So, as you'll see, what you're going to want to shoot for with that is you're going to want to get 3 pairs. The pairs are going to be pretty specific, though. You're going to want to have an 8 of clubs. You're going to want to have an 8 of spades. You're going to want to have an ace of clubs and an ace of spades. And then you're also going to want to have a jack of diamonds to fill out your dead man's hand. And if you can get it, we also have the bloody star here, which should be cycling through your deck to give you the 3 pairs you need to have not only a dead man's hand, but also hit the LeMat Revolver so that if you don't pull the dead man's hand, and you can use any 3 pairs to do that, you can still get a dead man's hand for 1 turn. So it's a little bit of a backup in case everything falls apart with that, the draw hand. So that's it. I tried to break this game too, and I don't know, it works all right. It's not nearly as efficient as Doomtown Classic version of this, but I think it does the trick too. It's another one of those, it works really well for what it does, but it's very, very, very squishy. If you get somebody that's really aggressive first turn, second turn, you're going to have a hard time. But if you have any turtle decks, this is just going to stomp all over them. So that's it. That's what I got today. Everybody have a good afternoon.